Okay, I'm going to work on this image next and use some of the blur tools that we started last time here in folder 3. The start is just like a lot of the other images that we've started. You can see that I've duplicated my layers, and so I've got 2 layers of the same thing here. Trying to zoom in. There you go. And so I just got one layer right on top of the other. So I'm going to work on it this way and then spread them out. And it's for the same reasons that we did it last time. If you expand your canvas and spread the pictures out in advance, it causes some edge blur that we don't really need. So here it is, and I'm just going to go up here to Filter. Let me select the layer, Filter, Blur, and we use the newest ones here that are listed here at the top. In fact, they come in the same, they have a panel, and they come in, and you can apply them all if you want to, all at the same time. You see over here. Down here in the bottom is Blur Effects, and there's this word bokeh, and I was looking it up. It means basically creative blurring, and so that's kind of what we're doing here, is trying to do some blur that's creative. And this field blur, it kind of just gives an overall strong blur. Now it has that pin function that we saw before, where you can actually blur one piece of the image more than the other. Okay, and you can use more than one pin if you want, or you can go back and use the one here in the middle. You can see it's kind of like now that part of it is separate from the other pin. Okay, so there might be a situation where you want some of the picture to be a little more blurred than the other. Now, a lot of these features, I think, are intended to work with the history brush. You'll see when you click OK there that it goes back to sharp, and then it adds the blur. The sharp picture is still underneath over here in the layers panel. As I was saying, I think a lot of them are intended to be used in tandem with the art history brush, and so I'm just going to try to do something creative that incorporates some of this blur. The art history brush, I've got it set for an opacity of 30%, flow of 100, and you can kind of bring some of the image back into a degree of sharpness. I think that it's probably a good idea not to bring it too sharp. You know, like just part of it is left kind of blurred, and that's how the feature kind of works best. Okay, and you can see already I've got something kind of interesting going on here with a really blurred area over here, and then less blurred, a little less blurred. I sharpened up the steps down here a little bit. Now I'm going to borrow a few of the old techniques that we've been doing during the semester. I'm just going to add a new layer, and I'm going to dump some colored paint on top of that. I'm going to go with a kind of a dark green. See if I can get a little darker. There we go. You could do that from your swatches panel, maybe have a little more control. So I just dump in some green on top of that. I'm going to switch it to a hue overlay, and you can see it kind of gives this nice misty kind of greenish glow about it. I'm going to actually go in and add another layer, and this time I'm going to add some paintbrush, just some regular old brush. I got a big old brush here ready to go, and I'm just going to kind of stroke in some green around the edges here as well, because of those blank white skies that were behind this image. And kind of just experimenting here. I think I'll switch now to a blue and add a little blue in here as well. Maybe a little along the bottom here, something like that. And then finally I'm going to go back to my after image here, and I think I'll use a little dodge tool on it to bring some of the details out in these people right here in the middle. You can see how it's kind of neat how it works, and I'm just, again, trying to do something that seems a little bit like a creative use of the blur. I'll cut the opacity on that top layer just a bit too. Oops, doing the wrong layer here. Let's turn that back up and click on the top layer. There we we go. All right, now as you finish up, a little different than what we've done before, I'm going to use the crop tool and expand the canvas and default the colors. That part is not new, but as I expand this over, to get all of these to go over together, if you'll select all three layers before you push it across, it'll stay together. Okay, now you could also do that the other way. Take and expand the canvas the opposite way and try to pull the background over. However, with it locked, this is going to be, I think, a little bit easier way to do that. Okay, so I'll just name my layers here. This is just a straight paint layer. Okay, and then this one has a blending mode. I'm going to call it hue. And this is my, let's see here. Yeah, this is my blur layer. Maybe you could say field blur, just to help you remember which one you used here. Okay, and like we've talked about before, if you want, at this point you can unlock the background layer and call it original image. And then to finish up on this, we'll just need to add some type. Looks kind of big. Wrong font. I've been using Myriad on mine. Remember, you can just, if you know the name of it, you can just type the first few letters of the font in there and it'll update. Okay, and need to make this a little bit smaller. Okay, and then over here, I'll click and make a new layer over here. This will be my blur, field blur. Okay, and I'd like to. I don't expect you to do exactly what I've done on this one. I would really prefer to see you come up with something that you think is pretty fun to do, maybe even on a different picture. And I've got another one here if my movie's not running too long. Looks like we're doing okay. I'm going to go to another image that I opened up here to show you a different kind of blur. I've done the same thing here. I've got two images, one on top of another. The top layer will be my blur image. This one is going to be iris blur. And for the iris blur, I select the layer and choose iris blur. Iris means like an opening in the middle, an aperture. And on some devices nowadays, there's a similar kind of effect as this, and they call it toy filter. And if you kind of bring this in, just to explain what's going on here, these dots define the area of the sharpest part of the image. There's the little wheel here where you can kind of change the blur of the outside edge, and the blur actually kind of begins right here, and then outside of this ring it's much more pronounced. Okay, you can move these dots out, so there's a little bit more of that transition, or I guess there's a little less transition between the dots and the ring outside of it, or a little bit more of the transition, a little slower transition outside here. You can also grow this into more like a rectangle. You can even rotate this so the ellipse is off like this. And you can grow it in this way so it's more of a circle. But I'm going to keep it kind of little so that just the front end of the car, you can also relocate the center. I'm going to keep the front end of the car in focus and the outside edge and the back of the car is out of focus. There's some other things here you can try that'll brighten up the light in the background. And then there's a color enhance thing that just pretty subtle. Not doing a whole lot here on that. And then this light range, I don't think this picture really responds to it very well. That light part is kind of neat. I mean, you can really enhance the highlights in the background. I think that actually makes the effect even more. Now, the reason they call it toy blur or toy filter is because when you click OK here and then wait for it to blur, those of you who have shot models with photography know that it's always hard to make a model look like the real thing because the depth of field is so shallow, and so things come out looking kind of toy-like, sort of like miniature instead of the real thing. I think I can probably do better than that, so I'm going to try one more time. I think if I make the circle even smaller, it might have a little more of that same effect. I really tighten it up here. Okay, let's go with that. Wait for it. You have to wait for it to add the blur. Okay, yeah, I think you can kind of see the difference here. Now, what I'll do next is just finish up with the crop. Maybe make it a little smaller first. I default my colors so I get a white background. I've got the delete cropped pixels turned on, so I'll get that white. So the background provides the white. If you forget that, it's not a big deal. You can add the white later. I'll commit. That's all there really is to that iris blur. Now, you can, as I said, you can add more than just one type of blur at a time in that panel. And so I just would like to see you on your own photos or on my photos, whichever, try to do something that where you really experiment with it and get something good coming out of it. Okay, for this we'd add the type just like we've done before, and now it's real little. Okay, some images are bigger than others. For this I'll just use my show transform control, see if I can get it to come up. There we go. Being careful to hold the shift key down so I don't distort my type. That is a commit, and remember you can also do it this way, option, drag it over, and then back to the type tool, and you can call this one iris blur effect. Okay, iris, that should be blur there. There you go. That's it.